Alright, time for another draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com also, but nobody with enough cojones to take on any of the debate subjects. All put into little 5-minute chunks, very easy to digest, very simply drawn. All they have to do is show where there's errors made in the analysis, and they won't do it. So it really is very easy to prove science lovers to be lying scum. It just happens to be the truth. It seems all the science lovers are just lying, petty, weaselly, religious scum. That's why science is so wacky, is because all the believers are just dumb Muslims. Yeah. Tell me what to think, oh holy bearded man. Just not even close to doing anything called reasoning and logic. Certainly not fair fighters, okay? Yes, no, they can't fight fair. Oh, they're so ridiculous. Anyway, so this is day 7. No rational response to an obvious argument made pointing out how, well, gee, I think your mathematics has a flaw in it. Okay, so there's just 2 experiments. They're really easy, right? One experiment, you have 150 momentums and you have 50 coming in. Very simple. The other experiment, you have 51 coming in and 49 coming in. The same equation, the same mathematical equation says 150 subtracts from 50, you get 100 out. The same equation, they say, says 51, 49. No, you add these up and come up with 100. 100 comes out. 100 comes out here, okay, all of the momentum is conserved. Here, nah, who cares? No. Cut the momentum in 1/2. Only 1/2 of the momentum is conserved. Same formula, same science, same physics says that makes sense. Obviously, it's a paradox. It's nonsense. It can't work that way. Newton's cradles don't work that way. Okay, they either add the momentums and conserve the momentum, or they don't. Yeah, you can't have it both ways. So they will not accept that, yes, 51/49 comes out with 2. They know that's the wrong answer. Yeah, they know that doesn't happen. They don't swing in and everything just stops with elastic objects. So they know, okay, the formula doesn't work here. But it works here because they want it to work here. Not because it does work here. They just want it to. And that's all this is about. Their religion says Jesus walks on water. So this is their proof. They say so. They don't prove it by showing that Newton's cradles ever do this subtraction thing. Ever. So they don't show it. They just say it. And it's taken 7 days. And they still, not a single one of them, will concede, okay, that has to be fixed. There is a problem. Because I know Newton's cradles don't make 2 in this experiment. And I know this experiment is essentially the same as this experiment, so I have to use the same rules. I can't analyze this Newton's cradle differently than I analyze this Newton's cradle. That's not scientific. 7 days. 7 days. Oh, just amazing. So, the White Henry did respond to yesterday's video, but I'm going to read a couple of sentences because it just proves the point. He's a compulsive liar. And it's just, I really don't have an obligation to go through 15 different lies and explain why, well, that's a lie, and that's a lie, and that's a lie, and that's a lie. It's just such a waste of time. So, he says, my previous comments was dismissed as being trivial. Well, not all of it. Most of it was dismissed as being a lie. Okay, but anyway. So I'm making a more serious one. All right. This is, so it's responding. Okay, 0.05. So again, he's still doing time codes, even though I pointed out how, what do you really think? I'm going to go back to the video and find exactly the context of the sentence. You really think that's going to happen? No rational debate available. Clearly, no one is debating any of these arguments. Nobody's playing this clip where I just point out how you can't apply the equation unevenly. If you're going to apply a subtraction equation to this circumstance, you have to apply it to this circumstance. No one's going to play that and then respond. because they can't have a response. There is no response that says, of course we cheat. You know, of course we apply equations only when it works for us, but we don't apply them when it doesn't work out our way. They're not going to type that, but that's the simple fact and truth. Okay. There are plenty of rational debate. So there's no one's argued the 5-minute videos yet. No one. No one's explained how I'm wrong about my analysis of the clay experiment. No one's proven or shown how I'm wrong about my analysis of rolling an object at twice the speed in gravity. No one's responded to the falling gravity, the fact that you're going half the speed when you've only traveled 1/4 of the distance. No one has challenged any of those arguments, and they're decisive arguments in the sense they basically, to a logical person, prove the fact that, yes, it's only 2 units of gravity. When there isn't anyone willing to agree with you, and that's all you want. So again, yes, of course, the end result is there's a right answer and a wrong answer. You're saying 2 times the force is 4 times the energy. I'm saying that's on its face silly. Okay, so until you fix that and figure out how there's 4 times the force, you're in big trouble. And that means you have to deny that it's a time-dependent force, which, in my opinion, just makes you the asshole and idiot that I've already defined you as. You have to be an idiot. All right. What's the paradox? Please explain what you find contradictory. So I've been saying it for 7 days. See? You see my point, mindless marbles? Isn't it a waste of my time to sit there and just re-explain it again? What the paradox is? The paradox is you can't apply 2 different formulas. The same formula is supposed to apply to both circumstances. Why are you discretionarily saying the formula works here, but I'm not going to bother here because it doesn't work? You can't see that? All right, so that's it. Fuck them. I mean, I might read it later. I don't know. Look at it. It's a whole bunch of crap. All right? Look at all this crap. It's just stupid. Look at it. Look at all this crap. Look at all that crap. And he starts it off with just one lie after another lie after another lie. And I'm supposed to read all these lies. Well, fuck that. All right. So we'll go off to a comment that's more interesting. Speaking of mindless marbles. He left a big pile of crap over here. And Despar chimed in. I have to read this little crap from Despar. Oh, these people are just so marvelously duplicitous. Anyway, it's just a profile in asshole. I mean, that's all that exists on this planet. I mean, you scratch on a human being a little bit, you can find their little religion, their little special beliefs, and they crumble. All logic disappears, and they just turn into little fucking Muslims. All right. Amazing. All right. So this is the fan stuff I'm not too interested in. I think he goes through let me explain it. Here's the thing. The mainstream, I think this is it. All right. Yeah. That's the part I want. All right. So we'll do this little Despar pile of crap first. I guess I could move this over. It doesn't really matter. All right. There is indeed no such thing as antimatter in the actual physical world. I mean, anti-momentum. So again, they overtly are creating momentum that can destroy momentum, that makes it disappear. Completely opposed to Feynman's conservation video, when he basically explained the conservation law as basically saying these are real hunks of stuff, and if you're going to make it not be where it is, then it's somewhere else. It can't go away. And the whole point of this experiment is it's closed. The steel balls can't do anything else with the energy. They can't convert it into jelly beans or bingo, or they're not storing it in a battery. It can't disappear somewhere. It can't go somewhere else. And that's the whole point of it. And of course you're ignoring everything I just said as a true context. But that's why this is a nice elastic experiment. And all the energy stays in here. So unlike your little air cart experiments and your little cart experiments, all the energy stays in this system. And you have to deal with whatever your effects are. So if you say some effect happens, it's going to stay in here. And you get to see what happens. I mean, a real flaw in your free momentum experiment on carts is that the free momentum doesn't come back into the experiment, right? Oh, you're such a weasel. All right, in the world, but that has been proven over and over. So again, it's just such a lie. You've proven anything. Again, I've debunked the clay experiments that were the cornerstone of this nonsense in its history. And what else have you collected over the last 200 years as evidence of kinetic energy being real? What's the experiment? Air cart. That's it. A little flunky, rickety air cart experiment in which I demonstrated that an MIT professor faked it. There's good reason to believe he faked it. Are you going to deny there's good reason to believe he faked it? Are you? Okay, proven over and over again. You're such a liar. Physics Michael and my own analysis video. So analyzing a video is proof. Okay, so it's proof that the experiment was done correctly under the right conditions. I mean, I can show you Brozo air track experiment where he lets go of the car and it starts moving. It starts zooming. I mean, it's not going a little speed. It's going almost half the speed of the pushing speed. And he just let go of it. So, oh no, there can't be any chicanery involved. No, that's impossible according to you when you want it to be true. You're such a weasel. All right. So, I mean, have you done the high school teacher analysis video? So when you get to that one, I'll watch. Okay? When you get to the one that really matters, then I'll watch your video. The one where she wasn't trying to force the results. Okay. In order to calculate the total momentum of two objects after collision, you must treat the objects as the objects that reflect as negative momentum. So, okay, then in this case, 51 hits 49. Then only 2 comes out. That's what you just said. I must do it. So it must be that it's only 2. So 49 comes in, 51 comes in from the other side, and only 2 pops out. I mean, of course, I could make it 51, I could make it 50 and a half and 49 and a half, and then only 1 comes out. Right, but I can't get to 0 because when 50-50 comes in, obviously none of this crap happens. So when 50-50 happens, you don't do the math, right? I mean, your statement is wrong, right? You must treat an object that reflects as a negative momentum. Otherwise, momentum is not conserved. So again, we know momentum isn't conserved. The very idea that you're saying momentum is conserved when something goes in with 100 and it comes out with 133, or it comes out with 150, we already know momentum isn't being conserved. Oh, I mean, these people are so dishonest. Okay, it is very significant that when you apply negative momentum, for an object going in the opposite direction, that the total momentum of both objects after the collision precisely equals the total initial momentum before the collision. So, big lie. 51 minus 49 is 2. 2 isn't what went in. I mean, clearly it's different when you're hitting something standing, right? But even so if I make one object not moving and the other object moving, yeah, okay, it's a little more complicated. But again, we know the Newton's cradle conserves all of that. So we know it doesn't matter. Your equation still has to explain when now the energy is coming back, your reflections are returning to roost, as I've stated, what you're accounting. Because you're not going to get the right answer. All right, this is a clear sign that the minus sign must be incorporated into the math. Otherwise, momentum is never conserved. So big fat lie. In every single example I have done, of course, it's conserved. I just don't accept what you're claiming to be. Okay, the momentum, the real momentum. It's not the real momentum. And let's understand, Leska never did the frame rate for going back in. He never did the frame rate for this 150 and for this 50 and for the 100 out. We have no frame rates for any of that. And as I stated, the frame rates are shit anyway. He's using one single frame, for fuck's sake. God, you people are just such a... And that's your proof. We've proven it. Oh, God, you're so bad. Anyways, regarding... So this is mindless. Negative momentum. Let me clarify some things. Well, you're not going to clarify anything. I will make a genuine attempt to explain a few things. All I want you to do is explain why your discretion in using the formula. Here, 150 minus 50 equals 100. Here, 51 plus 49 equals 100. Why the two different ways of analyzing the experiment when you know it can't be that way? Newton's cradle does this or it does that. You have to claim a truth here. It either does add or it does subtract. Can't do both. And certainly can't do both at your discretion. I'll make a genuine attempt to explain a few things. When people talk of negative momentum, they are not saying it is intrinsically negative. So this just doesn't mean anything. Yeah, of course, you could call this a negative 51 and this a positive 49 and then just say it's negative 2, which wouldn't mean anything. You could just say left and right. Who cares? So nobody's tripped up by that nonsense. The point is it's a 2 versus a 100. It's a huge difference in the amount of energy that comes out of your silly experiment. Oh, damn it. Or anything like that. What they mean is it's always negative relative to the same choice of direction. Some choice of direction. Yeah, right. You're saying anything left is negative arbitrarily, or anything right is negative arbitrarily. Who cares? You're saying that somehow the bullet and the gun have opposite something or others. Whatever they're doing, that somehow one of them is undoing the other in some magical way, which of course isn't true. Here is the thing. The mainstream definition of momentum is that it is a vector quantity. So again, who cares? We already know your mainstream word jargon. You invent a word called a scalar. That's some sort of magical thing. I don't even know what a scalar is, how it fucking physically manifests. What's the physical manifestation of a scalar? Everybody can understand the physical manifestation of a vector. And certainly everybody knows that an arrow doesn't mean it's automatically opposing arrows. The gun going this way is not undoing the bullet going that way. They're both real movement in the real universe. Blah, 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 blah. Meaning it is something that has a magnitude and a direction. So again, we've all heard this. It's unpersuasive, frankly. I mean, it's Ken Wheeler talk. A magnitude and a direction. Woo, 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 woo. We need to denote the direction in some way, whatever that even means. Oh, it has a twin brother going the opposite. This is almost entanglement. They're almost trying to entangle these particles and say that somehow motion this way knows there's motion this way and doesn't undo on it. Meaning it's something that all right, we already did that. In one-dimensional cases, all these cases are one-dimensional. Relative, I mean, we're not hitting things obscurely. We're hitting them directly through their center of mass. Relative plus the minus sign do the job. So whatever that means. Relative plus and minus signs do the job. So again, there's nothing obvious about any arrow of direction and magnitude having any correlation to some notion that they have to minus. A bomb goes off. It sends particles going that way, and it sends particles going that way. There's no notion that those particles are in any way undoing each other. In three-dimensional cases, well, who cares? You need to break down the magnitude vector into components. Okay, we're not doing that. I mean, it's just silly. That doesn't work either. I mean, their three-dimensional math is just as big as a lie as the rest of it. The negative part is not what is important. Well, except you get completely different answers. It is the directionality that is important, so it's just so silly. All right, I really, really need to understand this. I really, really need you to understand this point. Again, it's just silly. What haven't we acknowledged the understanding? Yes, they're going in opposite directions, but there's no reason for me to think that because one goes one way, I haven't used energy to make it go that way. If a spring expands, it can only push the objects, right, that exist. It only has so much compression. You're saying that it has 3 times the energy hidden somewhere inside of it, because if I expand a spring on a brick wall, you're saying twice the momentum went into the brick wall. I mean, it's a ludicrous statement. Shit. When we know that, no, that's not what happened. We know how much energy went in because we pushed the object in. And then it reflects perfectly because the spring is secured to something that doesn't move. I mean, they actually say, okay, Professor Lewin actually said, well, we know it's non-negotiable that twice the momentum went into the wall, even though he acknowledges it has 0 velocity. And then he says, but there's no kinetic energy because, there's 0 velocity. You can't have any kinetic energy. Well, how can you have any momentum when you have 0 velocity? I mean, it's just such garbage. This isn't physics. It isn't science. Because I feel as though this is where your misunderstandings might stem from. Yeah, because I don't innately think that if somebody walks that way and then somebody walks that way, that somehow they're undoing each other in any meaningful way. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Why would I waste my time? When a mass moves in the opposite direction, that's just regular momentum. Yeah, it's always momentum. When something's moving in the universe, it has energy, and the energy is in the form of its mass and its velocity. That's the only thing that moves anything in the universe. That's what knocks down buildings, it knocks down bowling pins, it does all the work in the universe is mass and velocity. You want to find energy in the universe? Find something moving. Yes, no one said otherwise. Now, of course, there are relative arguments. Okay, I'm just saying that obviously if you're seeing something moving and you're actually moving twice as fast as it, so it's actually going slower than you, the point is you still saw your energy. You saw the extra energy. So anytime you see anything moving relatively differently than anything else is moving, you found energy. Because it's the difference that matters. And it doesn't matter what direction the difference is. Okay. But it's momentum with a direction, so we keep saying it. So if you assign one direction to be positive and the other direction has to be assigned to be negative, not complicated. Okay, I do that right here. 51, 49, not complicated, 2. So that's your prediction. That's what you say the experiment will come out as. I put 51 in this way, 49 in this way, I get 2 out. That's your scientific prediction. Do you have the integrity to say, yes, that's my scientific prediction? Well, of course you won't, because you know it doesn't happen. Oh, it's just so circular. If a steel ball hits a spring and goes the opposite way, why would it be anything other than momentum? Yes, the spring stored momentum. Yes, that's what it did. And again, no one said otherwise. Of course you've said otherwise. Okay. This does not contradict mainstream physics. Of course it does. Your physics, your interpretation of mainstream physics. Just as, again, Professor Lewin's statement that twice the momentum went into the wall, even though the wall has 0 velocity. And if the wall has 0 velocity, he's saying, okay, it has 0 kinetic energy. But if you're going to say the Earth moved, well, then there's not 0 kinetic energy, is there? Because you just made the Earth move. Paradox again. Okay, it would still have momentum, but since the direction matters, it would be momentum in the opposite direction. The fact that it goes in a different direction means it has different momentum, even if the magnitude is the same. So again, he says the correct answer is 2. All right. I don't know. I don't know if I remember this part. Now, here is the critical point. Okay. When people talk about conservation of momentum, what they mean is that the sum of the momentums is always constant. So this is just such, again, a lie. You don't mean the sum. You don't mean the net or the total. You don't. It's kind of obvious. Okay, you're telling me that when a 50-mile-an-hour car is going this way and a 50-mile-an-hour car is going that way, there's zero momentum. That's your statement. The net momentum is zero. The total momentum is zero. That's what you're saying, okay? And then you're going to say there's zero after. Those aren't rational statements or rational descriptions of the reality. You know that the total momentum is 100 and that you're going to get 100 back out. If the car's crushed, then you know I can find the 100 in all the broken little bits. You're just such liars. Oh, man. When you take direction into account. Thus, if you want conservation of momentum to hold opposite directions. So anyway, just to understand, none of this is hard to hold. Okay, Galileo, Descartes, and Newton didn't have any problems making this all make sense. So these people are just such despicable liars to say there's any experimental evidence in the real world that conflicts with conservation of momentum. Everything in the real world looks like conservation of momentum. The 16-pound ball rolling down the alley and then hitting the pins does a lovely job of conserving momentum all on its own. It doesn't need your mathematical help. Okay. Thus, if you want conservation of opposite directions of momentum need to cancel out. If you don't do this, then conservation of momentum fails. That does not. So that's just a despicable lie. And it certainly fails here if you do what he says. If I focus on the direction, I won't get the right answer. Okay. Fact one. These are not facts. This has been demonstrated with many basic collision experiments on you. All the same experiment done over and over and over again. Never using, say, 4-to-1 mass ratios or 5-to-1 mass ratios. Certainly never showing us, here's the Earth moving experiment. No, we don't get to see that one. I've shown the anvil with the ball bearing bouncing 200 times. And their theory is, right? This is one of the 5-minute videos. The ball bounces 200 times. Their theory is that every time the ball hits, it moved the Earth with twice the momentum that the ball had. Twice the momentum. So you can just imagine 200 hits. Yes, it's declining over time as it finally runs out of energy. But you got to figure it's going to make at least 50 times, 100 times more momentum goes into the Earth than the ball ever had. I mean, it's just a grotesque free energy experiment. See Dispar's latest videos. I mean, it's just such crap, along with Michael's videos. And yes, let's understand, Michael's video was done with a 40-cent spring. A little plastic push-in spring thingy. Yeah, that's the source of the energy. I mean, we all know that's got to be hugely reliable. I mean, that's a proven fact, right? All right, if you always add momentum up with taking direction into account, you will get, let's see, violations of conservation of momentum. If you always add momentum up without taking direction into account, you will get violations of conservation of momentum. So show me the example, please. All right, show me a real world example. Show me it taking 9 times the fuel to go 3 times as fast, and this whole argument is over. Oh, that's right. You can't do these experiments. Your physics can't do these experiments. It only has billions of dollars and millions of scientists and hundreds of thousands of laboratories. Where can it possibly do these experiments? Okay. If you add momentum, taking direction into account, so you subtract when they are in opposite directions. So you subtract 51 and 49, and you get 2 as your brilliant answer. 2. We all know it doesn't happen. We all know that's silly. But he's going to keep selling it. Then conservation of momentum works. So obviously that wouldn't be conservation of momentum. It would be destruction of momentum. This does not mean one bullet undoes another bullet going the other way. Well, then what does it mean? I don't understand. If the 2 bullets hit each other, does that mean it disappears? So I have a speeding bullet going this way and a speeding bullet going this way, and I make them hit each other, and they're elastic. That is, they won't crush, pieces won't fly off, they have to reflect. What do you think will happen, retard? Okay. whatever the fuck that would even mean. I don't understand. So he doesn't understand. I drew a zip gun. I mean, it's just a tube. You put the charge right in the middle, and then you put a bullet on this side, and you put a bullet on this side, and there's an opening that way, and there's an opening that way. Is it that complicated? No. All right. Does not mean one bullet undoes another bullet. You already just did bullets, right? Let's see. So draft science might cook up. Let's see. I don't know. Okay. In opposite directions, stop. All right. Let's just read this one. This does not mean one bullet undoes another bullet going the other way. Whatever the fuck that would even mean. Okay, that's what we are. This does not mean two balls going in opposite directions stop existing, or whatever insane straw man you and draft science might cook up. No, the point is what does the collision produce? And all these arguments are about what does the collision produce. And certainly we understand what explosions are. I mean, you think an explosion is, let's see how to put it. You know, you're doing Newton's third law, equal and opposite reaction kind of crap. And it really doesn't have anything to do with equal and opposite reactions. The explosion going this way isn't an equal and opposite reaction. The explosion that way isn't an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, they're both actions. Explosions create actions in all directions. If a sun supernovas, there's just an action. There is no reaction. There's no reactive thing. There's just the explosion. So I'm just saying that you're not recognizing the imprecision of what Newton was saying. He was saying that he was giving you a simplification that, yes, doesn't hold if you really understand where the origin of most energy is, which is in the expansion or contraction of some medium. You said there is no evidence of negative momentum because it doesn't happen. Right. Does that make Michael's video disappear? No, I did point out that, yes, it's a video. Okay, we've seen lots of cases of this being done. Now, I pointed out that one of the most credible science institutions on Earth apparently couldn't get the experiment to work, and they had to fudge it. And I went into detail explaining how the fudge has to be understood to exist, because you can look at the two carts and see they can't possibly weigh what he claims they weighed. They're missing necessary weight parts. So, you know, it's a good argument. Now you can say, okay, maybe there's a trick somewhere. Maybe there's some secret ingredient he added that we can't see. But we can look at the apparent obvious fact that it doesn't add up. It's reason for skepticism, and you won't even concede the reason for skepticism. All right. If there is a single scenario where objects leave with more momentum, according to Gary's definition, then they come in with Gary's definition of momentum is done. Right. I'm saying, yes, free momentum is not a valid concept. It's free energy. And if there was free energy, some kook would have figured out how to grab it by now. Some kook would have taken your experiment by now, right? If you're actually saying this happens, that you can increase the momentum of in a direction. I'm just saying it's too easy to capitalize on that. They would put, layers of material between a wrecking ball and the building, because if they did, they can increase the power of the wrecking ball. I mean, it's free more power. Free more power would be utilized if it existed. All right. This has been demonstrated with it's been demonstrated with the same experiment over and over and over and over. And what you don't show is it taking 9 times the fuel to go 3 times as fast. What I have shown is the other experiments that you've used to fake this notion, that is the 4 times the distance in gravity, I've explained. I've counter-argued with a perfectly valid explanation. I've explained the rolling object thing and made the direct statement that it's proven. All right, all you have to do is do the experiment and you'll see it going half the speed, 3/4 of the distance. A clear giveaway, okay, that friction isn't linear. Where's your concession? Oh, that's right. You won't concede to those facts. All right, demonstrate with electric conditions, and Michael's collision experiments have been pretty clinical, as you would say. No, I pointed out, the carts cost $500, but they're really shit. And he said he was going to calculate what the angular momentum of the wheels was, but we still don't have that calculation, do we? So that's another problem. The air tracks, look, I pointed out a simple fact. You're going to deny the simple fact? The air track has a flaw, and the flaw is there is a source of outside energy, right? You have pumps pumping air into the experiment, and that air has to always stay perfectly balanced. Now, you've seen those British, floaty, air thingies, right? Hydro, whatever they call them. Hydrofoil. You've seen them. You've seen how they do this all the time, right? So, are you sure that when the two things collide, the air pressure track thing isn't maybe pushing them with a little bit extra energy because they tilted a little bit and they got a bit of an exhaust? Are you saying that's impossible? It's a perfect experiment and there's no possibility of a flaw in that? And then again, with the carts, yeah, it's a real problem that a lot of the energy is in the rotation of the wheels and the track. And the other problem might be too, which, it's worthy of a consideration now and then, is the fact that if, they're really, they say it's low friction, but it's really not. I mean, it's low friction of the bearing of the wheels, but the wheels themselves have pretty good friction with the track. So you could almost argue that, frankly, if you're using a heavy enough cart and a light enough cart with more energy, that you could actually move the track. And so even when they do these experiments, they probably should have, especially when they're using sonar to decide how far away the car is, the detector shouldn't be connected to the track because the track is going to vibrate, right? So, I mean, ideally, you wouldn't connect the detectors to the track. See, there's lots of things you can figure out that might be a source of a problem, but you accept none of that. You just say, no, the 49-cent spring is fantastic. The whole thing is fantastic. It's a perfect experiment, and it's all you've got. So aren't we right back to 1730 or 35? You propose something, right? Dropping round things into clay, and immediately nobody knows the trick, okay? Nobody figures it out. And so you get away with it. And it won't be until hindsight that, oh yeah, well, if somebody really analyzed, he's only denting the clay, he's not penetrating the clay. Shit, okay, yeah, it's not linear anymore. The two experiments aren't being fair, because the thing with the higher velocity is going to actually take advantage of the change in the shape of the object as it goes through the clay. Those are real arguments. You know they're real arguments. Oh, you're smart enough to know that clay argument's pretty goddamn good. You are. It's a good argument that it's not linear. It's a good argument right on its face because it's round. Now you know that. And you know that clay experiment was the history of this formula. Without that clay experiment, this never would have got off the ground. You know that. So, you're just being so insincere. You're a liar. It's you're just a fucking liar. All right. So yes, Gary's definition of momentum, where you always add up the magnitude no matter what, fails. So he doesn't show me the experiment where it fails, except these rickety air cart experiments, right? So it doesn't happen anywhere in the real world. It doesn't fail to work if you analyze bowling ball and bowling pin. It doesn't fail to work if you analyze building and wrecking ball. It doesn't fail anywhere. Okay, fails to be conserved, demonstrating it is not a meaningful quality. Direction, blah, 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 matters. So anyway, just such a lie. Anyways, I've tried to clarify one possible reason why you might find it unintuitive. So again, they're using this little girly word. Wasn't it intuition that got you into trouble in the first place? So again, just lie about where this intuition problem was. That was Leibniz's problem. All he saw 4 times the distance and said, oh, it must be 4 times the work because it's 4 times the distance. And even the work equation, you can't admit that the work equation is fundamentally flawed to think that it isn't about time. I'm holding a 100-pound barbell. I'm not doing any work, you say, because it's not moving. Isn't that ridiculous? I mean, can't you figure out that, yes, of course, I'm fighting gravity constantly. I'm fighting the 100-pound weight of the object, which is the 100 pounds of weight represents a huge amount of energy. I'm having to counter it. I'm doing work constantly. Isn't that a more rational definition? Of course it is. You're such a liar. Anyway, might find it intuitive, but even then, why does it matter? Question mark. What you say, it doesn't make sense to you. You sound like a religious person saying the universe doesn't make sense without God. So again, it's just trying to turn around who's really the religious kook believing out of faith. Okay, he doesn't need to see it take 9 times the fuel to go 3 times as fast. He just believes it. We know he doesn't believe it. Just as we know he doesn't think 51 and 49 equals 2. He doesn't think that happens. The evidence for negative momentum, as I have painstakingly explained it, is verified by basic elastic collision experiments. Right, so the Newton's cradle proves it, because 51 goes in and 49 goes in, and we only get 2 out. I mean, see, they just ignore the argument for 7 days. He's going to keep saying this shit. Now, this he wrote 2 weeks ago, so. But he's the same argument now. He's using the same argument. Yeah, and here's one example. So it's the same fucking bullshit experiment. Lastly, you said the previous comment that all these belligerent people make you depressed. I can assure you the exact same thing applies to me. Yes, the fact that people like draft science can be this belligerently ignorant. So it's belligerent ignorance not to accept their denting clay experiment. It's absolute proof. It's absolute proof. It's absolute proof. That's all he's saying. Believe in our God. It's extremely depressing. So yes, it would depress the little religious poofters that there's an atheist in the world, a Darwinian. Yes, yes. I oppose your silly, trivial, baby, mushy, girly, sissy physics. Yes. Oh, he's such a jackass. Anyway. All right, that's probably enough. I mean, I was going to go to a different subject, but I guess I can just save that for later. Ding. Whatever. It's just, is there any point? I mean, the absence of any integrity in this conversation shown by the opposers. Again, all they have to do is explain why the duplicity in how they're applying the simple analysis. All right, that's all they have to do. Just explain the duplicity. Just explain why in this case it makes sense to subtract, and in this case it makes sense to add. Just tell me what's different about these two experiments that in one case you say it does this, and in this case you say it does that. How is there a difference between the this and the that? How does the cradle know the difference, and how do you know the difference? What about the two experiments says, oh, I know I subtract here. Oh, no, I subtract here, and then I add here. Even though it's exactly, I mean, this is 50 and this is 49. It's almost like on one side, it's almost the same thing. And this is just missing the 100 part. It's not that different, is it? No, it really isn't that different. So how the fuck could I apply the equation, discretionarily? How does your physics know not to do it here, but to do it here? Can you answer the question after 7 days? How does your physics know that these are two different experiments? Fundamentally, elementally. There's a fundamental difference between this and this. Well, you have to explain what that is. Because I don't think Newton's cradle could figure it out. I can't figure it out. 7 days. What a sack of liars.